Poland, 1943, 04 for 20 hours. Eric Weber, 24, a forced labor prisoner, has a swollen wrist, shallow cuts on his fingers, and a stiff limp. He grips a bent spoon while kneeling and scraping compacted dirt under a barrack floorboard, his breathing short as he works. He tells the man beside him to keep watch while shifting his weight to hide the movement. The other man nods and warns him to slow down. The spoon bends further. Skin tears. He adjusts his grip and continues, choosing pain over delay. The scraping deepens, the space widens, and his hand fits deeper before he pulls back and resets. He freezes, presses his hand to the ground and listens for reaction, then reaches again while whispering to the nearest prisoner to block the gap with his foot. The man complies while asking if it is worth it. He answers that it already is and digs again. Dirt packs under his nails. His wrist shakes, the spoon edge deforms. He keeps scraping in shorter strokes. A guard voice passes nearby and he lowers his head. The pressure eases. He resumes, carving a narrow channel that did not exist minutes earlier, enough to test a shoulder, enough to promise movement. He turns and signals silence with a flat palm while pushing loose dirt aside with his forearm. The coughing man apologizes through clenched teeth and presses his mouth into fabric. He tells him to crawl back and count steps. The man retreats. He keeps working. The spoon now blunt, his hand cramped, he switches to using the handle, prying and levering. The board creaks and he pauses, holds it, then lowers pressure and waits. No response follows. He resumes and opens a handspan of space before pulling the board flush again. He shifts his knee, hides the spoon under his thigh, and looks down. A guard asks what he is doing. And he answers that he dropped a ration crumb and is searching. The guard tells him to hurry. He nods and keeps his head down until the steps move away, then exhales and retrieves the spoon. The man beside him asks if they are done. He shakes his head and signals 2 more minutes. He scrapes faster, ignores the burning in his wrist, and widens the channel until his forearm disappears to the elbow. He stiffens and then relaxes when he recognizes the grip. The man whispers that the board shifted too much. He tells him to brace it with his shoulder and hold steady. The man complies, muscles shaking. He pries again. A crack forms. He stops and presses the board down, then changes angle and works the soil instead. The spoon edge flakes. He keeps going. The hole deepens. Airflow changes against his skin. He tests the space with 2 fingers and nods once. Enough clearance exists to plan the next move. He signals stop and slides the spoon into a shoe sole. He wipes his hands on fabric and pulls the board tight. The men reposition and sit. He whispers instructions to count rotations and memorize turns. One asks why a spoon. He answers because it was all he had and all he needed. The whistle repeats. They rise slowly. The board holds, nothing shows. The decision locks in place. They will continue tonight. The cost accepted. The promise intact. He clenches and releases his hand while standing. Blood seeps from torn skin. He tells the nearest man to take the first turn later because he can fit. The man protests. He cuts him off and says, speed matters more than pride. They line up. He keeps his weight even. A guard orders them forward. They move. His limp worsens. He adjusts pace and keeps eyes down. The spoon remains hidden. The hole remains hidden. The plan survives the hour. He absorbs the impact and whispers to meet after count. The man agrees and asks how many. He answers 5 and no more. The man asks why 5. He says because more will fail and fewer will die alone. The line compresses. He steadies himself. Pain spikes. He breathes through it and keeps moving. The stumble passes as clumsiness. Nothing breaks. The choice holds. The number holds. He receives a thread and a sliver of metal and tucks them away. He tells the giver to remember the order and the rhythm. The man nods and asks, what if the board jams? He answers that he will go last and force it. The bell sounds. Movement resumes. He keeps his posture neutral. The limp controlled, the spoon secure, the channel waiting. The trick simple and already working. The consequences cued. He meets the eyes of the 4 men and gives a single downward motion. They understand and turn away. He adjusts his shoe to feel the spoon and confirms it is still there. He presses his fingers together to test strength. It is enough. The moment ends without ceremony. The count finishes. The board stays flush. The ground keeps the secret. And the next action is set without words. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment. It helps a lot. A bandage loosens on a forearm as he crouches and retightens it with his teeth. He pulls the board edge just enough to test resistance, then slides it back while telling the nearest man to breathe slow and keep pressure. The man complies while shifting his knee to brace. Dirt crumbles. The gap accepts fingers again. He motions the order and counts taps on wood. 1, 2, 3. Stop. The first body lowers and twists. Friction scrapes skin. He steadies the board and holds until the movement clears. He grips the wrist below and instructs the man to exhale and roll his elbow in. The man does, and slides free. The next follows too fast. He arrests the board with his foot and tells him to wait until the signal. Impatience tightens muscles. He taps twice and releases. The body disappears, breath returns. He resets the board between passes, pressure controlled, sequence intact. The spoon remains unused now. The trick has shifted from digging to timing. He presses fabric into a mouth and orders stillness while keeping the board pinned. The coughing fades. He releases and waves the next through. Skin drags, fabric tears. He guides ankles to avoid noise. The man asks if the space holds. He answers by pushing him forward. The clearance works. The gap swallows another body. 4 gone, 1 remains. He signals the last to prepare. Palms slick, wrist burning, focus narrowed to mechanics. He freezes, applies downward force, and tells the last man to stop moving. Steps pass nearby and then recede. He waits 3 counts longer than needed, then resumes the board flexes. He counters with his knee, the last body compresses and slides. The board drops, flush again. Silence returns. He does not follow yet. He replaces dirt with care, wipes marks, and checks alignment by touch. Nothing betrays the passage. He tests the knot and anchors it, then lowers himself feet first. Ribs compress, breath short. He keeps moving. He tells himself to keep rolling and not rush. Fabric burns, the edge bites, he rotates and clears. The board settles above him. The space closes. He pulls the thread free and coils it. Movement continues without pause. The group advances by feel and whispered cues, turns memorized earlier, now executed. He steadies it and instructs to count 3 steps, then crouch. The man does and waits. Another signals a turn with a tap. They flow forward in sequence, contact brief, instructions minimal. He keeps track of spacing and halts 1 advance to prevent collision. Discipline holds. The trick remains simple. Bodies obey geometry. The path extends. The risk accumulates, but stays controlled. He clamps his jaw and shifts the load to his elbow, tells the nearest to take point while he guards the rear. The man hesitates. He orders movement. Now the line reforms, progress resumes. He checks behind for collapse and feels stability. Dirt presses breath. Thins, he regulates pace with taps. The plan adapts without discussion. The cost accepted again. The sequence unbroken. He tests it, finds give, and instructs a low crawl. The lead complies and passes. He follows last and braces, while the other's clear pressure redistributes nothing. Caves, he releases, and moves. The thread snaps free. He discards it, hands numb, wrist shaking. He keeps going. The trick has carried them beyond the board, beyond the immediate trap, the next obstacle already forming. He halts the line and orders silence while counting breaths. The men comply. Control returns. He checks each by touch and nods, all 5 intact. He gestures forward and they move. The passage narrows, then widens. He adjusts order again. Small decisions stacking, consequences managed. The spoon remains a memory now, its work complete, the escape in motion. He signals stop and listens, then signals go. The men emerge 1 by 1 into the next phase. He follows and seals the last trace with his hands. Nothing left to catch an eye. The trick has done its job. 5 bodies now free of the first barrier. The sequence shifts from extraction to evasion, and he moves without looking back, keeping the line tight and the plan alive. He halts and presses a hand flat to signal stop, then leans back to redistribute weight. The line compresses and steadies. He tells the front man to lower his shoulders and move on a count. The count comes and movement resumes. Friction eases, spacing returns. He releases and follows. Pain spikes and fades. Control reasserted. The sequence continues without noise. The next decision already forming as the line advances. He drops to a knee and braces with his forearm, instructs the nearest to crawl past while keeping contact. The man complies and clears. He holds until pressure reduces, then rises and moves. The order adjusts again. He takes rear to monitor, breath measured, hands numb. He checks each transition by touch. Nothing fails. The path remains intact. Momentum preserved. The cost contained. He stops the line and orders stillness while counting slow breaths. The men obey. He tests forward with a palm and signals a tight passage. One asks if they can wait. He answers to move now while timing allows. The front advances, the rest follow in rhythm. He guards the rear and seals marks with his hands. Discipline holds. The trick continues to pay. He absorbs it and locks elbows. Tells the man to roll and keep going. The man does and clears. He regains balance and advances. The sequence tightens, taps, replace whispers, decisions, shorten consequences, immediate. The plan remains simple and effective. Movement continuous, the line intact. He reaches, finds the wrist, and reorders positions without stopping the men comply. He confirms spacing with 2 taps. Progress, resumes, pain returns sharper. He ignores it and keeps pace. The rear stays clean, no trace left to betray passage. The trick remains invisible. He pushes forward and signals follow. The front clears a bend and halts. He closes distance and orders a staggered move. One by one they advance. He counts steps and resets rhythm. Control restored, momentum regained. The path opens enough to pass without compression. He follows and seals again. He tests left then right by touch and signals right. The line obeys without question. The decision shortens distance and reduces strain. Progress improves, breathing steadies. He maintains rear watch and keeps cadence. The trick now fully converted into motion and timing. He braces and instructs a low roll. The front clears the rest. Follow he goes last and applies force only where needed. The resistance yields. Nothing breaks, the line emerges intact. The sequence shifts from passage to dispersal. He signals separation and counts them through. He assigns directions with taps and brief words. Each acknowledges and moves. He waits until the last clears and then follows. His route distance grows between bodies. Risk drops. The trick completes its arc. 5 paths, now independent. The outcome locked by earlier choices. He releases tension, checks his hand, and steadies breathing. The line is gone, and the objective achieved. Consequences accepted and paid. The plan finished without revision. The simplest tool having done the most work, the result undeniable and complete. What did you think? Intriguing, right? Watch the video on your screen. I selected it especially for you. See you there.